Got about 2 more minutes and we'll get started. Thanks so much for your patience. I see everybody's typing their speech topics on the chat. Go ahead and take a look at those topics. I think you'll find that there's some really, really interesting topics that people are choosing to speak on. I'm really excited to see that much invested already in this speech. Tonight's going to be a helpful meeting in a lot of ways. I hope that you will find that what we discussed tonight will get you ready for your speech draft that is due to me on Sunday night. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a moment. Go ahead and make yourselves at home. All right, I am going to go ahead and get started. I want to share this screen with you. I want to make sure that you all can see it. So bear with me just one moment while I get things set up here. How's everybody doing tonight? Are you all doing well?
Doing good.
Yeah, yeah. Did you all have a nice weekend?
Wasn't bad.
Wasn't bad? Well, that's good. That's good. That's better than I had. I had a stomach virus, so I apologize for missing the meeting yesterday. I hope that that doesn't happen to any of you if something's going around. I think it might have been maybe some food poisoning. But I spent most of the weekend, at least yesterday and the day before, in bed. So I apologize so much for canceling that meeting yesterday. I hope I have not inconvenienced anyone. For that reason, I'm going to pay special attention to your time this evening. And I'm going to try to get this meeting wrapped up in about 30 to 45 minutes. But I will be here to answer any questions that you have after the meeting. So if you do want to talk with me more about your topic, or if you have questions about the speech development, I want to be able to help you all out in that way. So I'm going to stick around after today's meeting to talk more. But there will be plenty of time for some Q&A as I'm going through this PowerPoint, and this PowerPoint is also provided for you in Canvas already. It's just always better to hear me talk it through. So I'm glad you were able to make this meeting tonight. I'm having some trouble with my settings. Can you all tell me if that is the full view or if you're seeing the view with the preview?
It's a full view.
Perfect. Okay, that's what I was trying to get to come up and it wasn't working for me. All right, well, I am going to take you through this PowerPoint, and hopefully after I've talked this through, you will be able to choose your speech topic. As you are coming in, I asked the question, please share your name, your full name, and your speech topic for the persuasive speech with us in the chat. So if you haven't done that, be sure to do that now, because I will be going back and taking a look at that, hopefully to use some of that for examples as I talk you through the details of tonight's lecture. Also, I'm going to ask you another question towards the end, so be listening up. But in the meantime, taking notes is a really good idea. So if you want to take notes, grab a notepad and a pen, or you can type notes as we go. But it's probably a good idea as I'm talking through these different patterns of arrangement, that you're fitting your own topic into these patterns and imagining if this is going to work well for your speech's goal. So we're going to talk that through here just a little bit, and I'll of course be here to answer questions. Feel free to chat any questions that you have. I will be checking on the chat periodically. For now, let's talk about the speech, okay? The speech is due. It's due on the 18th. So we've got about a little less than 2 weeks, okay? A little less than 2 weeks before that speech is due. And it is a 5 to 8 minute speech. You'll have 4 verbal citations, and keep in mind the verbal citations that you cite in the speech should be the same sources that you have on your works cited page. You must turn in an outline and a works cited page the same day that you deliver your speech. So if you're speaking in Zoom on Thursday, you'll want to submit the outline and works cited page before we meet in Zoom in order to give you the most points possible, because this is the final speech. I like to have the outline and works cited page with me when you speak. That way I can kind of see that you're following the plan. If you miss a source, I can see it's there on the outline, so I can see that you intended to share the source, but you might have forgotten a source. So that will help you in the long run to have a better grade. So you definitely want to submit the final version of that outline before you present. Okay, so I can have both the outline and your presentation. You will need a presentation aid for this one, and it's worth 10% of the grade. So you definitely want to have a presentation aid. Now, you don't have to use a PowerPoint, but I highly encourage you to do that because it's a great resource to get comfortable with. It's usually the tools that you'll have at your disposal in classes and in your career goals. PowerPoint is still the most widely used presentation aid software. So it's not a bad idea to get used to using them. Plus, it can help you as a speaker to feel more confident because it offers you something to use to help you in your message. You can include media. You can include 2 minutes of media, but you must have 5 minutes of spoken speech. I don't care where you put that media. You can put it in the beginning, you can break it up and put it throughout the speech, you can put it at the end, wherever you feel it's going to enhance your message. Just keep in mind, if you use media, it still counts towards your time. So you only have 8 minutes. So even if you have 5 minutes of spoken speech with 2 minutes of media, that's 7 minutes, right? But if you have 7 minutes of spoken speech with 2 minutes of media, that's 9 minutes. So you don't want to go over time. You definitely want to give yourself enough time to deliver that speech. Any questions about the speech requirements? And I'm just going to stop the share for a minute just to take a look at the chat. to see if I'm missing anything important. Any questions?
Media, you mean like we can, if we have a certain YouTube video or some kind of outside source, we just plug it in? Like, I'm guessing we have to have that prepared ahead of time. We can't just like look up the link. We have to have that prepared and then just quickly switch to it so we try not to waste as much time as possible.
So you want to imagine this is real life, right? If you were in a classroom and you had that YouTube video and you had to go and search for the link, it would probably frustrate everyone in the classroom, right? The same thing that happens when, your teacher's fumbling to try to get to a place in the presentation or they're having technology issues. So the best thing a speaker can do is be uber prepared. It's always better to be over prepared than under prepared. So I suggest having that link handy, maybe open it before you come to speak or before you stand up to speak. One thing I noticed that some of you all are doing, which is fantastic, is you are running your let's see. Can you hear me? I think I just jinxed myself. Everyone can hear me. Okay, I'm back. See what I did? See what I did there? How frustrating is that? But you're running their HDMI cord from their computer to their TV. So if you're giving your presentation to people in your living room, you're able to share that presentation aid with them. So you could do the same with a YouTube video, right? A lot of smart TVs have that technology built right into it. So I would have it open, but I would turn the TV off until you're ready to, well, maybe hide the screen or step away from the screen until you're ready to show that, so you're not having that as your only presentation aid if you're not using a PowerPoint or a Prezi to deliver your speech. If you are going to deliver in Zoom, which I know a lot of you will be, you can, and that's, with me in Zoom, you can share your screen. So I will enable the share screen option, and if you have a video to share, you should be able just to go to that link. The best thing you can do for yourself is have that link embedded in your PowerPoint. That tends to work better than having the actual video embedded in your PowerPoint. However, that's been my situation. If you're really good with technology, you probably know how to do that without much lag. So I hope that didn't go too far in answering your question, Joseph, and I hope I answered your question completely. Hopefully, right? Did that answer your question?
You did perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I just want you all to be as prepared as possible. The best thing we can do as speakers is to be over prepared. I always caution students to rehearse well, right, with your technology, because I can tell you through experience, there have been many days where my PowerPoint didn't work, or whatever I planned to do just didn't work the way I wanted it to. And I had to be prepared to improvise and to just go with it because the show must go on. And I always think of giving a speech, there's a little bit of drama involved in that. We put a lot of time into the preparation and presentation, so you want it to go really well. And it doesn't hurt to prepare it like it were a show in so many ways. So I always use the expression, the show must go on, right? We've got to be prepared to adapt. All right, so that being said, let's talk a little bit more about how you might get prepared. And, when we think about building a speech, you guys have been doing this pretty well up to this point. I'm seeing that you're getting more comfortable with outlining. You're really, really good at research. One thing I've noticed that this 2021 class is really prepared with the research. I've seen that you all have great sources, credible sources, reliable sources, and you're citing those sources really well in your speech. Excuse me. And I'm really glad to see that, because credibility has a lot to do with not just your preparation and your confidence, but the source material that you gather, and especially for a persuasive speech. As I'm seeing you get better prepared and more skillful in your development, I want to share with you some great persuasive organizing tools, is what I like to call this. They're great tools to organize a persuasive message. This can be if you were doing an essay, if you were giving a debate, if you were negotiating a contract, if you were trying to build a sales pitch for the workforce, if you were trying to implement a new concept or idea, anytime you inspire your audience, anytime you compel your audience or try to convince your audience, right, you're building a persuasive message. So not just in a speech class, but beyond, you can use these patterns of arrangement to build your ideas. So they're clear, they're structured, they're coherent, and here's the best part of all, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. Because essentially what we're doing with building these patterns is we already have the plan in place. Now it's just time for us to put the information into the plan. So I'm going to teach you all some simple strategies to help you plan effectively, to be more persuasive. And when we think about persuasion, right, we're trying to influence the attitudes, beliefs, and values, ultimately the behaviors of our audience. And we're using the elements of persuasion that Aristotle taught us, the appeals of logos, ethos, and pathos. So using the skills that you've gained, you're going to be able to build those appeals right into your message. Okay, so let's take a look at this, the different strategies you might choose. You might choose a problem, cause, solution strategy for your speech. If you see that you have a problem and the causes are important to that solution, then a problem, cause, solution is perfect for your speech. Maybe you have something that allows the audience to see that the cause and effect relationship is integral to the problem itself. Because of that cause and effect relationship, they want to urgently solve that problem, right? So you might have a great problem, cause, effect, solution topic. Now, you may not have to include the cause. You might just have a problem solution structure where you can see that your goal is either to solve a problem or you're analyzing the problem and building solutions into your development. Then you're going to really enjoy the motivated sequence. That's a basic problem solution structure. Now, if you're not sure, or you think I'm better at debate than I am looking at problems and solutions, then you're probably going to choose either a refutation or a comparative advantage. That's more of a direct way of reasoning, much like we saw Jacobson and Brand do in the nuclear power TED Talk. They were both using elements of this strategy. All right, so I'm going to take you through each of these patterns, and then I'm going to help you decide which of them will work best for your speech topic. Let's start simple, right? We're going to start simple with the problem solution structure. Now, you can't choose the problem solution structure, but if you think you have a problem solution type topic, the motivated sequence will work just like this strategy. I like to start here though, because it's easier to break down what these other patterns mean when we start small like this with a problem solution. Now, don't get me wrong, problem solution is a great strategy. Some amazing TED Talks are built on the problem solution structure. In fact, a lot of my persuasive essays and a lot of the work that I do at the college when I have to build proposals, build like a problem solution structure. So it's not a bad development to learn. But for this particular speech, I want you to take it a step further. But let's look at this, okay? This is my claim. Now I'm going to modify this claim to be more concrete. I like to be very specific when I build a claim. I feel like this is a little ambiguous, and in some ways it doesn't necessarily appeal to my demographic, which is going to be here in Lake County. So I'm going to modify this claim just a bit, because homelessness, poverty's subjective, right? But homelessness is something a little more tangible. So I'm going to really identify homelessness. So because homelessness in the, and I want to say Central Florida area, because I want to include Claremont and Leesburg and Lake County in this. So because homelessness in the Central Florida area is a major issue, organizations like, and here's where my solution comes into play, New Beginnings that fight homelessness need our support. So you can see here that I've got a problem. My problem is homelessness in Central Florida. My solution is going to be supporting the organization New Beginnings. It's a simple two-part speech. This is a two-part body. I still would need to start with my introduction that does all the things the introduction does. I would have my first main point, which is analyzing the problem. My second main point, which is offering solutions or a solution. And then I need to have my conclusion. Now, when we think about problem solution, right, we really want to help the audience to focus on the problem. We want them to see that it's integral for them to do something. And so they really need to understand the problem. So if I was going to illustrate the problem of homelessness, what are some ways that I could do that? How could I share with my audience that problem of homelessness in our community? What do you think? What do you think? What are some things that I could highlight to help illustrate the problem of homelessness in my first main point? Statistics of homelessness in the area. Okay, Ricky offered the idea of statistics. Okay, now can you tell me what kind of statistics, like specifically? And this can be anybody. It doesn't have to be Ricky to answer this. What do you think? What type of statistics? What would I look for if I wanted to illustrate homelessness as a problem in this area? I could show pictures of local homeless people. That's a type of soft evidence, right? It exists, it's real, but pictures, they're subjective. But what kind of statistics should I share? And when we think about statistics, right, we're looking at populations impacted. We're usually looking at people, whether it's, popular opinion or it's specific instances. So shelters that are packed and rejecting people. Okay, so I could talk about the availability of shelters. There aren't a lot of shelters in Lake County. In fact, I know of none. I know that there's transitional housing. So I know that would be something to consider. So maybe it's the lack of shelters here in this community. I could share this statistic for the percentage of people who live below the poverty level in Lake County. Yes, I could. I could talk about the cost of living, and then I could reflect how many people are living under the ability to meet that standard, right? I could. I could look at statistics related to how many people are homeless in this community as well. Now, it's difficult sometimes to find current statistics, but go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Any comments there, Jesus?
No.
Okay. So thinking about, and I would imagine you would maybe have some ideas here, so feel free to speak. But I think one thing we can look up that we know we can find pretty easily and readily is how many homeless students there are in Lake County. That's something that's published annually. And I think that is really important to consider. We're talking, K through 12 students. So we're talking ages, sometimes 4 to 18. Those are young people. Those are children, right, that are impacted by homelessness. We probably could find some pretty current statistics on how many people are actually homeless in the community as well, if we wanted to find that out. But I think when we start to look at the demographic factors, who's homeless, that plays a role in people's perception of homelessness. Another thing to do is to define homelessness. Homelessness can mean a lot of things. I think it's more than just the person pushing the cart, right? It's more than the people living in the homeless camps. And we know that there's homeless camps here in Claremont. There may not be shelters, but there are places where the homeless reside. It's more than those people, though. When we think about homelessness, we can be talking about people who are in temporary housing or in transitional housing, living with family or friends, living, kind of in desperate situations where they might be living in hotels or they might be living in their cars. And we know that that's not a fair way to live. Hotels are very costly, and we know that there's a lot of people who are just getting by. That's going to create a cycle of poverty. There are people living in their cars, which is not a way people would want to live. So you want to think about, how can I define the problem for my audience? And looking at statistics of those impacted is one way to do that. Literally defining what homelessness is another way to approach that. Your audience needs to understand that that problem is significant before they feel as if they want to be a part of the solution. Okay, I'm going to move on to problem, cause, solution. Problem, cause, effect, solution. What I want you to realize is that when you break down the problem, cause, solution, that's a 3-part body. The first main point is the problem. Just like we illustrated the problem of homelessness here, we might illustrate that in a problem cause solution as well. The cause is the second main point, and the solution is the third main point. Those aren't interchangeable, they have to go in that order. And that makes sense to the audience, right? In a lot of ways, it makes sense to go from the problem to the causes and then bring us to the solution. If I wanted to build a cause and effect relationship, a lot of topics, global warming, for instance, has a clear cause and effect relationship. Jenna's topic of do not text and drive could have a cause and effect relationship. It's very valuable to think of cause and effect relationships when people are involved. When I'm doing something to cause this consequence, it's good to highlight that I'm a part of that problem. And you want to do it in a way that says, you may not realize this, but right, there's a cause and effect relationship. And it can help people to feel as if the consequence is significant enough to want to solve that problem. Let's look at the breakdown, right? You want to start with your introduction, always solid introduction, capture our attention, right? One thing I'm seeing that students aren't doing as well this semester than I've seen in previous semesters is they're not really taking the time to capture attention. Thinking about ways that you can capture our attention. You might share a shocking fact, a startling statistic. Make them think, oh my gosh, I didn't know. I didn't realize it was that significant of a problem. You might share a meaningful quote to make them think, right? Or make them feel. You might tell a story. Tell a story of survival or perseverance or risk. Tell a story of your own experience to really connect with the audience and to create common ground. There are a lot of ways that we intentionally capture our audience's attention. Sometimes we have to use multiple attention getters to really, really make them want to listen. I've had students ask great questions that really got us thinking, and then they told us a story, and that really made us think more. But it's very important to capture your audience's attention, especially for a persuasive speech. So begin with that attention getter. Don't introduce yourself. Don't tell them what your speech is about. Start with that attention getter. We call it the hook for a reason, right? We want to hook our audience in. And then you want to establish your credibility. And this is your connection to the topic. A lot of you are doing that very well. Don't forget to tell your audience why they should listen to you. You've chosen these topics for a reason, hopefully because you're interested in these topics, or maybe you know a little something about it. But if you have a personal connection to the topic, tell your audience. It can be as simple as I was just interested and wanted to know more, or I realized how significant of a problem this is and I thought you should know more about it. Or I saw a lot of misconceptions and I wanted to help you all to know more than the average person. Or if you've got expertise or qualifications, tell us, right? It never hurts to say, I wrote the book on this, and so you should listen to me. Whatever the case may be, don't forget to capture attention, get their attention with a strong hook, right? Establish your credibility, and I'm typing this as I go. Your connection to the topic, right? That's not your sources, not yet. Though you might have had a source in there if you shared a shocking statistic, right? Create, and this is a big one in a persuasive speech because people are going to disagree with you, and that's okay. You want to be able to challenge their views. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be worth discussing. So you want to create common ground with them. Find that place where you meet halfway, all in the introduction, before you present your claim, which is your thesis, and preview your main points. I can't stress enough how helpful it is to preview your main points for your audience. It helps them to see what you're going to be telling them. It helps them to prepare mentally for it, and it helps you to have a really organized and well-developed message. I shared those things in the chat for you to just take note of, okay? Strong introductions start strong, and they help the audience connect right away. And then you want to build your speech body. And you can see this is a 4-part body where you're going to really develop that problem so they understand it better. You're going to share the causes before going into the effects. And finally, you're going to offer a strong solution with a call to action. And the call to action is really important. It is one of the most important parts of a speech that's meant to persuade. So that's going to fall in the conclusion. So you're going to signal the end of the speech in your conclusion. You're going to summarize your ideas or restate your thesis or your claim, and you are going to call them to action. Every speech, no matter which topic you choose, should do all of these things. No matter which pattern you choose, should do all of these things. And I want to prepare you all for that. So if you are thinking a problem cause solution or a problem cause effect solution, this is a great way to look at that development. My favorite of all these patterns is the motivated sequence. And when I look at your topics, I think almost all of you could build a motivated sequence. If you see your topic as either a problem that needs to be solved or the solution to a problem that needs to be solved, you've got a motivated sequence. I'm going to go through the development of a motivated sequence. You've seen it already in chapter 16. I just want to help put this into perspective for you to bring it to life. Okay, so the motivated sequence looks like a 5-part body, but it's not a 5-part body. It's still a 3-part body, just like we've been using all along. You can see that Monroe took the added step of labeling the introduction and conclusion. He wanted to make it easy for you to know what goes into this speech pattern. So it has an introduction and a conclusion, just like the ones I just shared with you here. But Monroe calls the introduction the attention step, because he felt that if you didn't get their attention right at the beginning, you were never going to get their attention. And with good reason, right? People really don't tune in unless they feel like they have to. So thinking about capturing their attention, it's really important to do that in a powerful and meaningful way. And this allows you to bring value to the topic or the goal of your message. The next step, and I'm going to call these steps instead of main points, because I think it's important to see that each one connects to the next. After you've brought value to the topic, you've captured their attention, you've established your credibility, you've created some common ground, and you previewed your points, which for this would be a problem solution preview, much like you saw me do with homelessness. You're going to help them to understand the problem. Monroe calls this the need step, because he wants this to be seen from the audience's perspective. If the audience sees it as a problem, they're going to feel compelled to solve it. And so this is putting the problem in the hands of the audience so that you can motivate them to want to do something about it. So taking a look at the need step, this is where you describe the problem, you demonstrate that it really truly is a problem that needs to be solved. So you can literally take them to the solution, which is the next step of the process. So looking at step 3, you see it's called satisfaction. What you've done in step 2 is you've created cognitive dissonance. That's that imbalance between thought and action. If I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing, say for instance, I'm a smoker, right? I'm smoking, I know how dangerous it is for me. And then somebody calls attention to that. And they say, if you quit smoking now, though, you could give yourself a lot of extra time. In fact, quitting smoking might give you another year for every year that you haven't smoked, something like that, right? So the idea here is that I just created cognitive dissonance. I created disharmony in the way people think and what they're doing. And then I satisfied that need by offering a solution. So he wants you to go straight from that problem to the solution. Don't mix up the steps, right? You want to follow the steps just as they are. And here the solution should be practical. It should be concise. It should make sense to the audience. They could say, yeah, I could do that. Or I could see that that could be done, because then they're going to feel like I can be a part of this solution, and balance is restored. So the hope is that you've created that dissonance, and then you bring them to satisfaction, the solution, before you help them to see that this can work. There's real meaning in action. That visualization step, and don't get it confused with a visual aid, though I know a lot of you might. I want to remind you that that's not what it means. You can have a visual aid, but what visualization means, it means to help the audience to visualize the impact with their mind's eye. So we can see that This could make a major change. There's real benefits if I do something. This is where you might share with them all of the benefits of action. You might share with them the risk or consequence of inaction, or you might share both. So think about Jacobson and the debate. When he showed those images, right, of this beautiful green earth or this disastrous outcome, right, that was a visualization step with a visual attached. He could have spoken that through in words, and that's what Monroe wants you to do. He wants you to tell the audience that the solution can work to inspire action. Right before, and look at that last step, it's the action step. This is your conclusion. It does all those things that I said a conclusion should do, but most importantly, it calls them to action. Now let's look at a call to action, because you are all going to be building a call to action in your speeches. No matter which pattern you choose, in your final paragraph, in your conclusion, you should call us to action. Now, the best calls to action really challenge your audience to act, to do something, right? So if there's an app for that, connect us to the app. If there's a petition to sign, show us how and where to go. I actually once had a student call Marco Rubio in class. He said, "You want to see how easy it is to do something?" And he gave us the number. He said, "I'm going to call my congressperson right now." Called Marco Rubio on the phone and left a voicemail for them, asking them to make a change to standardized testing in Florida. So it was really neat to watch them do that. And it showed us how absolutely accessible this change is. Accessible change. It can be something that we can all easily do. It's immediate, right? It can happen right now. And immediate change works best. I think about my New Year's resolutions. Here we are in April, and I kind of forgot all about them, right? So we think over time, we call this the corrosive effect. This goal of change, right, doesn't feel as important as time drags on. So keep that in mind. The more immediate the action, the better. So if they're going to go vote, you want to make sure they know they can. And that they know how to and what to do. I don't know about you, but when I first started voting, it was a little intimidating. I didn't know much about the process. And so I didn't know a lot about my candidates. I didn't necessarily know where I needed to go to vote. And I didn't feel as prepared as I do now. So that's one thing that keeps people from going to vote on election day, is that they don't know how to do it and they don't know what to do. So you got to give us enough information so we feel as if it's something we can easily do. It's something we can do right now, and we know exactly how and what to do. Don't forget to restate your thesis and summarize your ideas as well. But a good call to action can go a long way. So that should be included in everyone's conclusion. All right, any questions so far? I'm trying to stick to my timeline here, so I hope I'm not going too fast. Any questions? I want to show you all the debate style, or the direct method, that you'll see in the textbook. But I just want to make sure that you all are carefully considering using the motivated sequence, because it is a really great pattern of arrangement. So I'm thinking anytime you have a problem, so global warming, for instance, for Rourke would definitely be great for a motivated sequence. Hannah, there's actually a random acts of kindness outline that I'm going to share with you that's done in motivated sequence. You might like seeing how someone has done that in motivated sequence. Affordable healthcare is definitely going to be something, Adriana, that you could build into a problem solution. So it would work with the motivated sequence. And as I go down this list, I see so many topics that would work, as long as you can see that there's a problem associated with the topic that you want your audience to better understand, and you can guide us to a solution or a course of action. So I'm going to continue on. But before I do, I just want you to really consider one of these patterns that allow you to look at solutions. So often we talk about problems and we rarely offer solutions. Wouldn't it be refreshing to offer a solution? Now, there's one more thing I want you to think about too before you do decide to do the solution step. And kind of thinking about this, right? You don't have to solve world hunger. I don't want you all to feel like you have to know how to solve these major problems. But I do want you to seek answers. So you can look how, it's being done through organizations. How are organizations working to fight depression, to help people get access to treatment, to fight global warming and climate change? How is our government doing it? Or how should they be doing it? And here you can look at ways that you think they should act, right? We can look on a national level. We can look at how other countries are doing things, and we can maybe use that as a comparison or a side by side study. You can look at international solutions, national solutions. You can look at societal solutions. So, how can we be a part of that solution? You can even look at individuals' solutions. So, when I think about pollution, for instance, and here I am as I drink out of my plastic water bottle thinking about this because I know that plastic is dangerous for the environment. I could easily compel my audience to grab a reusable water bottle, right? So, that would be one step in the right direction. But I want you all to realize that the solutions don't have to be invented by you. They can be out there. That you just want to connect us to the resources and help people to encourage that course of action. All right, so I'm going to skip now to comparative advantage. Now, I want you to think of comparative advantage as a direct method of reasoning. Now, when you build a comparative advantage, much like you would share in a debate, you want to take a topic that your audience is at least familiar with. You wouldn't take a topic that they don't know much about or they really don't understand completely. But it's those types of arguments that we're all pretty familiar with. And so we can consider status quo, the current state of things, or we can consider status quo my opposition. Now, obviously, no one's going to think it's a good idea to text and drive. But if you ask the audience if they have ever done it, they're probably going to admit that they have, right? Obviously, people don't necessarily think that climate change is good, but there is a little bit of question as to, how bad is it, right? And then thinking about issues like homelessness. No one wants homelessness to persist, but can you get people involved in creating that change? Can you get them to want to do something about it? So that's what I want you to think about, right? When you think about these topics is while you may not see there's a lot of opposition, there's always opposition or there wouldn't be anything to persuade. So thinking about that, right? The opposition is in the call to action or the goal that you have for your audience. So a comparative advantage would allow you to, build your introduction and then your body points, you can have 2 to 5, are going to be looking at the advantages of your position and why, the audience should see this as beneficial. So each of those main points are going to be a premise, much like you saw in the Jacobson Brand debate, and they're going to be supported with evidence. Every good debater knows that every premise should have evidence to support. So when you think about evidence, we're thinking hard evidence, facts, statistics, expert testimony, or soft evidence where we're using images, illustrations. We might be using examples or specific instances. We might be telling them a story of experience or survival. That's soft evidence. Doesn't mean it's any less important or valuable to use it, but it's always good to have a lot of evidence. So it's not bad to have both hard and soft evidence. Each one of those premises or each one of those benefits of your course of action should have a substantial amount of evidence. And don't forget to tell them how the evidence adds up. That therefore statement, we call this warranting our claim, is so important to your message. Sometimes the audience present the research and the speaker presents the research and the audience doesn't ever see how that adds up. You don't want that to happen, right? You want to tell them what to take from the evidence that you've presented. Now, I don't think that this illustration does a really good job at examining how you would build a comparative advantage, but I want you to think about it as having an introduction, main points. Each of those main points, Maxie, shh. Each of those main points is a premise, and then having a solution, or I'm sorry, having a conclusion that includes a call to action. And the textbook does have some really good illustrations of how to do this. Max, come here. Come here. Come here. I think there's a cat outside. Come here. You guys get to meet Maxie, otherwise he's going to be bad. Say hello, Max. Anyways, so definitely want to build aspects of a conclusion with a restatement of your claim and a call to action as well. All right, the next one, and the last thing I'm going to talk about, because I know time is limited, but is the refutation. Now, the refutation is looking at the status quo or the opposition and refuting it or counter arguing it. So I think about this, right? When we think dogs are better than cats, can you think of some things that are maybe not so great about cat ownership? That would be areas of refute. I could say cats are better than dogs, and I could say dogs bark, and so they're not very great companions, though I do love him. So you can see that would be refutation. Refutation, just like the comparative advantage, is best when it's an argument people are familiar with. So I think those controversial topics like gun control and abortion, for instance, we're all pretty familiar with the types of arguments that are out there. So using a refutation or a comparative advantage might work well for those types of speech topics. When we think refutation, right, we're challenging the opposition. So each of our main points is going to be an area of refute or a counter argument. Now, the good news is you don't have to use comparative advantage or refutation on its own. You can actually interchange these two different arrangements. You can't do that with motivated sequence. You've got to pretty much stick to the motivated sequence just like it is. Same thing for the problem cause solution. It's got to be in that order. But with refutation comparative advantage, you can be strategic. So if you want to start with a benefit of your position and an advantage, and then for your second main point, offer an area of refute, and then your third main point, end with an advantage, that might help buffer that refute, which isn't always the most positive way to build an argument to an audience that disagrees with you. If they already disagree and you're counter arguing the whole time, they're not going to receive you very favorably. But if you prepare them mentally to accept your position and to be open minded, maybe by offering some benefits, they might be more open to your appeal overall. So you really want to think about that when you're building your debate style message. How can you keep your audience interested? Help them to be open minded and help them to listen, especially if they don't agree. All right, so I just gave you all a ton of information and I didn't want to overwhelm you with it. Hopefully, you feel a little more prepared for your speech. And I wanted to take some of the guesswork out of it for you by giving you some ideas. Now, I do want to share just a couple more things, and I know it's about time because I told you 45 minutes. So I just want a couple more minutes because I think that this is going to help you all. I want to share with you in Canvas where you're going to find a couple of outline resources because I've had students ask me. I think it will help you to see that. So I am just going to navigate over to Canvas really quickly and share with you where those resources can be found. All right, so right now I'm in your class and I'm going over to modules. And from modules, I'm going to scroll all the way down. Okay, I'm going to do that really quick so you probably won't see everything along the way. But these are the weeks, and you've probably done this once or twice before. And keep on going till you see outline resources. And there is an example here of the motivated sequence. And this is actually the same as Hannah Faith's topic. This is a motivated sequence on random acts of kindness. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so you all can see this. But I want you to notice, and keep in mind, this would be prepared as a Word document, so it wouldn't be laid out side by side like this is. But it's just like the informative speeches. You should be able to see that the Roman numeral sequencing is the same. You notice you've got your specific purpose, you've got your central idea or your thesis, you've got your, remember Monroe labels the introduction, but you've got your introduction, and that's listed here as main point 1. There's the attention getter, the credibility statement, the preview of the main points. We've got subpoints, A, B, and C, subpoints, 1, 2, and 3, just like I've been teaching you to do with your outlines all along. And then hopefully it's going to let me go over here because
moves that way on the page. You can see that you've got your main point, the need step, main point 2, and it's broken down for you just like a Roman numeral outline should be. And then you've got your third main point, which is the satisfaction step, aka the solution. And because this is weird on the page, I gotta come back over here, but I want you to see there's that visualization step. Now you don't have to label these. In fact, I'd rather see your transitions in place of that word, the visualization step. In fact, you don't want to tell your audience you're using the motivated sequence. You and I will know you're using the motivated sequence. I'll have your outline, which will show me that as well. But you don't want to refer to your speech ever in a speech. You want the audience to feel that they're more important than a class assignment, right? So you don't want to refer to the speech. So it'd be better to use a transition there. So now that I've told you about the solutions, I want to share with you how this can work, right? And that's where that visualization step would fit. And then finally, you've got your action step. So you can see how that's broken down for you. This resource is really helpful, I think, if you're using the motivated sequence. I want to share one more thing with you before I let you all go. This is, now it's a sample outline, and it's done in problem solution format. It's a very archaic piece of paper. I've had it since I started teaching. It was given to me by another teacher, and I just love it so much that I don't want to give it up. But I just shared it in the chat for you all. I do want to show it to you because I think it's a really helpful resource when you're building a persuasive speech. This just happens to be a problem cause solution. And you can see it has all the elements of the introduction labeled for you. And it gives you a plan. Now, you don't necessarily have to do it just like it is here, but it does give you an idea of how you might build your own problem cause solution speech. And you can see it broken down very simply for you. And then there's that conclusion. It has all of the elements it should, except it didn't include the call to action. So don't forget to include your call to action in your conclusion. But you might find that resource to be helpful. So I shared it with you in the chat. Any questions for me before I let those of you who are ready to go? Don't go yet, but anybody have any questions? Amy asked if it was too late to change your topic. I don't think it's too late. I think that you could still change your topic, but I don't think you have to change your topic. Let's see, Amy, what was your topic? I can scroll back up and find it real quick, but you might want to just tell me so I catch it sooner than later. The importance of self-care. Why would you want to change that? I think that's a fantastic topic. I think that would be a great motivated sequence. If you look at self-care as being a solution to a lot of our problems as humans, or you could build comparative advantage, refutation, I think it would be a great topic. You could even look at problem cause solution for that one, that we just don't take enough time for ourselves. And it could be because of life stressors, right? Because, we get impacted by just our busy and hectic lives. And then looking at the solution of self-care. And that would give you the chance to focus really heavy on the solutions. So you all, there's not a sort of amount of time you need to spend on each of these points. It really just depends on how you want to enhance the message. If the solutions are the most important part of your message, spend the most time there. If you need to really illustrate the problem to help them understand the solutions are important, then spend more time there. All right, so I've kept you long enough. As you're leaving today, my final question to you is to please put your first name and choose the pattern of arrangement that you are going to use. If it's the motivated sequence, you could put MS, or you could just put motivated, like I've done there. Or you can say problem, cause, effect, solution. Or you can say comparative advantage, or you can say refutation, or you can say both, right? Comparative advantage and refutation if you think you're going to use both. And then, of course, if you're going to do problem, cause, solution. All right, I think you get the point. And that way I have an idea that you are feeling confident. If you have any questions, stick around. I'm going to answer those questions for you after this meeting. And you all have a wonderful week. I am around if you have any questions about your speech development, if you need any help building your outlines. I highly encourage that you post your outline of this week's discussion, but if you want to do the 3 questions option, that's fine. Just be strategic in how you ask those questions. You all have a fantastic evening. It was nice to have you in this real-time space.